What is up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to yet another episode of The Brick Lounge presented by SC Bricks. Once again, I'm your host, Eric, joined again by John and Kipp. What is up, gentlemen?
Yo,
Hello.
how's it going, fellas?
Hey. Happy to be
So-
here.
So I will, let me lead off with this and say, I had to fight the terrible urge on that intro while the music was playing. The thought crossed my mind of what our theme is this week, and it took all I could do not to break into my worst Shakespearean accent ever.
Well, that would have been good. Or maybe played some Merriman music instead, right?
Hear it.
Yeah.
Good morrow, good morrow.
Good morrow. Yes, that'd be great. I like
Doth enjoy listening to thus entertainment.
the bricketh that clicketh.
The bricketh that clicketh. Yeah. Oh, all right.
I think we're ready.
I think we're feeling this. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to another episode of the Brick Lounge. In case you haven't figured it out, we're not gonna bury the lead on this one. This week we're talking castle.
Oh my
One
god.
by one, working our way through the classic Lego themes. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, this
Uh,
one's exciting too.
it
They're all so
is.
exciting. But I just
It
every
is.
time we talking about a theme, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to talk about that one.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's always it's so deep too. There's so much to. I mean, just like the whole reason we started this podcast is there's so much to the Lego community, and the different themes are a part of that. You know, but before we get into the topic of the show, just like always, I want to talk about our week in Lego. Tell me what's been going on.
Kipp, you go first.
Oh wow. Okay, so I've been working on some city stuff, believe it or not, and have been trying to complete a skyscraper. And I'm about halfway through it at this point. I just posted some pictures in my Kipp's Corner section of Discord.
Kipp, if you're standing on the ground, is it taller than you yet?
Not yet. And it's not going to be quite my height. It's going to be close. If I do the measurements,
That's insane.
it's going to end up being, if I do another section of middle floors like I did this one, it's going to be a total of 4'6", which is 3 inches
Wow, Kipp.
smaller than the other skyscraper.
So, according to our Discord post at 7:12 this evening, that is a fantastic build. That is huge, Kipp.
And there's
Wow.
still 5 more floors to go.
That's what I was wondering. So, do you have them built, or do you still need to build them?
I still need to build the other 5 because I am out
Okay.
of trans blue brick and
Oh yeah.
white plate. I've got, believe it or not, I've actually got it built, just not built. All of the columns, all of the windows, everything, they're all built. I just don't have the connecting pieces to connect each of them together to create each of the floors.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping this weekend I'll be able to pick those up off of a pick-a-brick wall.
Kipp, I love this is based off the botanical garden.
Yes, it is.
I gotta say, you know, your skyscraper, and like John said, based on the botanical garden. I never ever in my mind thought when you talked about wanting 2 copies of botanical garden, just like anybody else, me, I'd be like, I also want to double that botanical garden and make a nice diorama display. Not thinking you were cannibalizing that for a behemoth of a skyscraper.
Yeah. This will dominate the skyline for sure. It'll be the first SC Bricks significant high rise.
Right
So-
next to the other one. And then I'm also working on a 48 by 48 courtyard that will go in between the 2 skyscrapers.
Are they going to be somewhat similar, or they're just?
Well, the other skyscraper is the one that you've already seen, the black one. So I'm doing like a yin yang
yeah.
type thing. And
Yeah.
the actual garden area, there's a pond, and above the pond is an actual yin yang symbol. And I'm going
love
to
it.
have it
Cool.
like
That's
split
awesome.
down, you know, just like the buildings are light and dark. I'm going to do the same thing on the courtyard area where half of it's going to be light, half of it's going to be dark, but it's still going to be quote unquote the peaceful grounds where they can meet.
Very nice. That's exciting.
So-
You're doing a great job, Kipp. I
But-
can't wait to see that product. Really nice.
And I'm still waiting on the rest of the dots to come in because I'm actually not come in. I got to place another order, but I'm waiting for Lego to have a double points or another
Oh yeah.
good
I'll take
promotion
advantage of it.
to take advantage of it. I'll be placing an order for more of those tiles, and I'll probably finish up other than the white tiles, because I'm really hoping to find those on a pab wall. I'm seeing them on Brick Assist, so we'll see if they make it to our side of the world.
We shall
Right.
see.
They're in the
We shall
Midwest right
see.
now. They're in the Midwest.
Working their way eastward.
Slowly but surely, they'll make their way to Greenville, South Carolina.
My wife and I are doing a cruise in October, but we're going out of Tampa. So I'll be hitting up I think there's 2 Lego stores in Tampa and a couple bricks and minifigs. And then we're
Nice.
doing a day trip to Legoland. So I'll be hitting up the block shop there as well. And
That's
then,
a different store. The Legoland, you actually go into the theme park.
yeah,
Yeah,
Mm.
that store is it's a kind of a corporate. It's a Lego store, but you'll find some extra sets. They have Legoland sets there.
Exclusive ones, yeah.
Exclusive Lego set land. And I don't remember that they had a wall. To be honest with you, I'm sure they do.
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big wall with a lot of stuff, but
It's like a double wall.
pretty much, yeah. It's
Yeah.
And I
huge.
want to think that wall might even have some parts that are like offshoots from the factory that aren't like normal parts.
Regular
either.
production stuff, yeah.
We'll have to get that update. Can you call us, please, while you're there? And FaceTime us. Make sure that we're there. Share these.
If you see anything unique, just go ahead and get an extra box of each for me and John.
Yeah, we'll just go ahead and
for it.
knock
So
it out.
Eric, funny fact. I'll go ahead and introduce this fact into the Brick Lounge memorials. I don't know what am I looking for, into the Brick Lounge archives. So I was actually at the grand opening of the Legoland Park in Florida. I was there on what was considered Media Day. And so it is also the day that I got to meet Kirk Christensen and shake his hand. So
Very cool.
yeah, so just a quick story. So I got a pass to go, and I was obviously very excited. I had my "What Would Jesus Build" shirt on, and holding the red train. And so Heather and I went, and we went through the whole park the whole day, and I knew that the entire executive team was there. So I knew Kirk Christensen was on the property. And
You're
so
just scouting out.
I was everywhere I went, every ride I went on, every display, I was looking for him. I was looking for his media entourage or whatever. And at the very end of the day, I was so frustrated because I hadn't seen him, but I knew he was there. And it was, my wife was determined, my waffle was determined to, for those of you who don't know, Waffle is a wife of an adult fan of Lego, so I've coined that one myself. So she was determined to help me find Kirk Christensen. So we stopped right before you walk out, and they have these apple fries, and there's a couple little stations there where you can buy like a drink and some apple fries. So we're standing there. Heather bought some apple fries. I ran into the Lego store, and as I'm coming out, I had shown her a picture of Kirk Christensen from the Lego set that he was on, the re-release. So she had a picture of like what he looked like, but not really. And we're standing there eating his apple fries, and she looks up and she says, "John, is that him?" And he is walking right to, I turn around and he's walking right towards us with his assistant, and the assistant's on the phone, and he's just walking right at me, in discussion. And I'm like, "No, that's not him." And she's like, "Yeah, I think it is." And so I totally fanned out. It was just a moment where I recognized it was him. I saw that this was definitely like he looked like the guy on the cover of the Castle box. I mean the town plan set, and it was, and all the pictures I'd seen of him and everything. And so I just stood there like frozen for a minute.
Just
I think Heather might
dumbfounded.
have nudged me or something, and I just walked right up to him, and I said, "Hi, Kirk Christensen. My name is John. I have been building Lego all my life. Thank you so much for everything you've done." And he looked at me, and he looked at my shirt. He pointed at it, and he's ha ha ha. He started laughing at it. And so he said, "I've never seen that shirt." And so we got a selfie. His assistant took a picture of us. And so I got to talk with him for a few minutes. He was very engaging and just a really sweet guy. And I felt like I was definitely around Lego lore at that moment. Like it was a super cool experience. So I have in my Lego garage, I have a picture of the receipt, the 2 tickets to the Lego VIP pass, and a picture of me and him in my "What Would Jesus Build" shirt. So that's how I got to meet him. Yeah. So you'll be right there. Right there. Not with him though.
That is a wonderful story, John.
Yeah, it was a great day. I'll tell you, the park was brand new. It had been a water park before, and so there were still parts of it that hadn't been developed. But the models were incredible. The different shops that you could go in were laid out. It was fantastic. I could have stayed there all day. I could have been there a couple days. So you will be on overload, just so you know. Yeah,
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it.
yeah.
That'll be good. But we'll go back real quick. What is we
Mhm.
got Kipp's week. What's your week, John?
Oh, well, thank you. So my week this week has been I've been deep into my space building. So I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I've been on space now for a while. I have been building minifigs. So I got a shipment from Lego online, pick a brick, a bunch of torsos. Also, I've been stocking up when I'm able to at the Lego store at the mall on the space minifigs. Kind of going all in on this design because I figure it's the design, different color sleeves, same pants, same torso, using all these various heads I have to build a bunch. So this week was really spent inventorying, ships. I have some 3-in-1 creator sets that are mechs, and I'm just trying to put it together so I can see what I have before I start really building. And so
Yeah.
that was my week. It's all about space.
Well, that's people are going to get tired of hearing us talk about space, but
I know.
that's that's been me too. I can't stop thinking about space, and I haven't posted pictures in the Discord yet, but my week is I finished my Space Baby Moon base.
I can't wait to see that.
That's I'm so proud of that thing, and I built the rover from the retired rover from the last wave of space that was based on the Artemis missions.
Yep.
I built that, but I've modified it to match the color scheme for my space base because that's kind of the style I'm going for with my bigger base. So I built that as just kind of my baseline, and I've decided I'm actually going in a different direction because I've already got Space Baby Moon base.
Hmm.
I'm going to be utilizing as many of those alien habitat $15 sets as I can get, and I'm going to be
Hmm.
doing actually an alien world using that space rather than Moon. I decided
Nice.
to switch it up from Moon and do more of like an alien
Mars.
type thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. I,
I thought that
I
would
go
be a
back and
good
forth with that.
switch up from my Space Baby since it's very gray and Moon. I don't want everything I build to be gray. I want a
Yeah.
splash of color to be thrown in there.
Yeah, those are
So
great
that's what
sets.
I did.
Little.
Oh yeah, they're wonderful. So that's what I did as far as space goes. Started working on my little dreams diorama that I showed you guys that I'm struggling with inspiration on right now. My dreams are failing me currently.
You
But
just need a little
it'll come together.
inspiration. A little inspiration. We talk it out. It'll be great. You do that
Exactly.
as soon as you put those paths down with all the tiles that Kip's going to let you, or all the dots that you need.
Right.
He's got a corner on the market on dots right now.
He
So you'll
really
have to
does.
somehow get some from him. But I think once you get the little path down, it's gonna look fantastic. It's gonna look like not a nightmare, but a
Yeah.
pleasant dream.
I told Kip off mic, I was like, it's like I don't know if I'm struggling for inspiration or I just don't want to build it and would rather build space.
You know what? That whole series is edges on the edge of space. It's fantastical in a way, and it
It
kind
is.
of like fills that space itch just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
bit.
But so that's been my week. So we've all have several things in the fire right now, which is exciting. But before we deviate and turn this into a totally different episode, let's nail into the topic of the show. Let's talk castle. I personally am very excited about this. I mean, you guys have heard me tell the story, and I've told it on the podcast before about my Forestman set from when my parents got married when I was a kid, and Castle was a huge part of my childhood. Castle and Space were the big two, as they were for probably most people our age at least. But that was huge for me. And Forestmen were, I mean, it's Robin Hood and Lego. Loved it.
Yeah, that came out right at the same time. I think that Robin Hood was out. Like that was in 1988-ish.
Yeah,
Right.
the Costner Robin Hood. Yeah, the
Yeah,
Prince Chiefs. Yeah.
that was good unintended timing.
But the Castle does. I mean, Castle is so deep. We were talking off mic, audience, about before we started recording how deep these Lego themes go, and it's just wild. It's impossible to cover everything. I mean, it goes all the way back to Castle goes all the way back to what 78.
Yep.
1978.
Yeah, 78. I think it officially ended in 2009.
It's a good year. That's
Yep.
the year I was born. That was
Oh, Kip, that's good
Yeah.
stuff. The special year of 78. That was a big year for Lego in general because as
Yeah.
we've been talking about these different themes, that was when they rolled out the town, the space, and obviously the castle set. So yeah, I have like a real special place in my heart for Castle because I was actually living in Germany And my first big castle set was the yellow castle. And so I actually still have it. And I still have some of the minifig torsos and some of the minifigs. And it was for me probably the start, because I think I've mentioned this in the past that, living in Germany, we would take trips up and down the Rhine River, and we would go see all the different castles that were along the Rhine River. And so, this gave me a chance to really have a castle in my house, the yellow castle. And so, yeah, I actually got a bunch of interesting facts. You guys want to hear a little bit about 375?
Bring it on. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. First of all, in preparation for this, I want to say that if anybody's interested in Lego history, again, we talked about this in one of their episodes. Lego does a great job of putting their history on their website, so you can go read about some of the facts about some of the things actually I'll talk about. There's if you go on YouTube, you can see some different videos that have been made on the topic. There's a really cool website called Brick Economy, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute, that gives a lot of stats. But so some of the stuff I'm talking about is, I'll just say I got it from different sources, but some of this is just straight from the heart. So as Kipp said, 375 came out in 1978, and it was just called Castle, right? And so it was initially only released in Europe, in UK, and Australia and Canada. It didn't even make it to the US. So I was fortunate that 375 was released in my area. Now, I didn't actually have 375, but let me talk to you about what that set had. First of all, it had 767 pieces, had 14 minifigs. It was one of the first sets of Lego to actually introduce the minifigs. And so some cool things about that is they not only released the minifigs, for those of you that have seen the Everyone is Awesome set, right? They were just monochrome. They were just blue. They were white. They were red. Nothing special, nothing printed on them. But they had torsos that you could put stickers on, and they had jousting stick. They had a battle axe. They had a short sword. They had shields. So this was the introduction of all the little things that you can add to a set that make it really exciting. So just a very basic design by today's standards. Some of the, Lion's Night Castle and some of the castle sets that are out right now are absolutely amazing, but it was revolutionary for the time, right? So it was a playable, it was customizable, and you could buy more than one if you were so lucky to have $50 at the time, because that's how much they were. And you could build them together. It folded out, right? So you could expand it. And I think I said this, but it had 14 of the minifigs, super fun. No king, no medieval people, just knights. And fun fact about the stickers, I think right now, if you're able to and lucky to find an original set of stickers, it's about $500 just for the sleeve of stickers. I know. Wait till you hear these other numbers. So a couple of the nuggets, the horses were buildable because they didn't have molded horses yet. And let's talk money for a second. So, I don't want to get too crazy here. And these numbers aren't like crazy, but if you were able to find a 375 on the market available out in the wild, what do you think you'd pay for it now? Remember, it retailed for $50. Just take a guess.
With box and everything sealed, or
Yeah.
Jesus,
sealed in box.
Yeah.
Several
Oh,
$1,000.
That's a good guess.
More than, I mean,
I'm
I'm
thinking like
going
8 to 10.
Yeah, I was thinking
Yeah.
10K.
Yeah. Now you're talking. Yeah. So according to Brick Economy, right? So first of all, they haven't seen a full 375 sealed in the wild in over 1,000 days at this point. Current estimate is $11,178.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, Yeah. And so and yeah. And so just parlay that into the bigger picture, right? So fast forward 46 years, which is how long Castle's been around, right? So you get all the way to 2024. So you've gone from 375 in 1978. Now you've got over 279 castle sets. You got 820 minifigures. If you were fortunate over those 46 years to be able to buy every single castle set out of the 200 and I'll round up 80 that have been created, it would have cost you about $5,400. How much do you think that is worth in today's Lego dollars?
Just ridiculous.
Yeah. Kipp, you're close to it. So it's about $85,000. So if you're lucky enough to go find all of the 279 Lego sets, you're going to be paying at least about $85,000. So I know.
I have a couple of them.
Yeah, I don't have. I mean, I have. My story really starts with 1981 which is when they re-released 375 under a different number. And it was, it was the same exact set. It was just released in the US. And let me see, what was that number? I think it was 1075. So they re-released it. It had instructions. They added the 6075 next to it. And it was the same set. So that was where insert John. That's when I got my set. I got a picture of me playing with it on Christmas morning. And now I know that my parents spent $50 for that Lego set. So it was very generous of them at the time. And, from there, like you said, Eric, I mean, it just gets deeper and deeper. I mean, I had a good time just kind of looking over the facts behind Castle. And I just quickly realized there's just too much. There's so much. And yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
One of the things though I think is fascinating about Castle is in particular with Lego, and why I truly believe it was one of the I'm going to call them the founding themes of Lego as we know it today, is Castle captures imagination in a very unique way. Like if you look at Lego's original three themes of town, castle, and space, all three of them meet a specific form of imagination. With the town, you're playing real life. You're
City building.
Yeah, you're mimicking what you see. Castle, it's a whole nother form of fantasy / history combined, and then space, you've got imaginative sci-fi,
Absolutely.
and futurism. So they all touch on three very fun concepts that are core to the
almost
way
like
human
past,
creativity
present,
works.
and future.
Correct, exactly.
There you go.
Very, very good point. But Castle scratches that itch, man. People love fantasy stuff. They love that. They love medieval. I mean, there's medieval times. There's restaurant franchises that are based on nothing but Castle. But it captures imagination in such a fun way. And one of the things that I think makes Castle so collectible, and what makes people keep going back to it specifically, are the theme, or not just the themes, but like the factions. Because Lego did a good job of, just like they did with space, of keeping it fresh. Every few years they would incorporate a new faction, so you could have competing armies. Castle was really the first army building,
and everybody had
absolutely
favorite faction.
And really, like, one of the things, John, when I was looking through my faction, everything, you start with the original Yellow Castle, which I think they're now called the Crown Knights, where was that redo, but they didn't have a name at the time.
And
so
some of them are still unnamed. So some of the ones that they use, they never created factions for.
The official original faction was the Black Falcons, which was released in that third iteration of Castle in the mid 80s. And that was kind of Black Falcons, and then later Forestmen were my first memories of Castle. Was that run of it. You got Black Falcons, Lion Knights, and Forestmen were the first three that I remember.
Yep.
Yeah, and if you think of that time frame, from 81, which is kind of more or less our starting spot for the three of us when we talk about building. Kipp, you were only 3 then, so you were just dreaming about building. But I was building the Yellow Castle, and then around that same time, to your point, they started. They build on these themes in such a way that every set they bring back or that they release is a plus. They start out with the castle, and then they have they have other sets that have a market, and then they have the castle minifig pack, and they just keep going. Then they customize the color, they make it more gray, they start doing printed pieces, they start putting more minifigs out in little scenes, and over time they're just constantly feeding you with this village that if you were to just buy it all over time, you would have an amazing village with tons of different castles, and it would all work. It would all work.
And I mean, that's kind of the cool thing too, is even between the different themes and the evolution of building techniques, you can have castles from entirely different generations together and it not look out of place. Like some other themes, it would look out of place. Aside from more simplistic building techniques, it still fits. The imagination fills in the gap.
Well, John, you said that castle set that you got came out when I was 3. I got my first castle when I was 6.
Nice.
When I was 6, I got the Knight's Castle, which is set 6073. That
Nice.
was the one that
That's a hot
yeah,
set, Kip. That one, yeah.
that was the one that I played with all the time and got several of, like you said, a lot of the little different accessory packs, like the little catapult and the guard tower and those different types of things. What I loved about it is that it was almost like a modular type things where you could fan out the castle and then attach more stuff
Yes.
to it and make it
Mhm.
bigger and better and design it how you
Yeah.
wanted it. So I think that
Yeah.
actually brings in where Lego became quote unquote modular for the first
Mhm.
time.
That's actually a good note to pick up on because the castle theme was fun in the way of, you know, it was a dollhouse approach where you could open everything up and get inside and create your own stories, but it would still create a full
Yep.
package, connect together. A lot of people with modern day Lego criticize the fact that everything's the dollhouse approach. You don't like the open backs or anything. But that's really only a critique of the AFOL community because we like everything to be one nice complete thing,
That's right.
Yep.
you
All the way
know,
A
around.
full display
versus kids.
piece.
Correct.
Yeah.
Versus kids want access to it. The castle was always able to balance both just by the nature of what it
Yep.
is, which is wonderful. One of the things I do want to touch on Castle in particular that fascinates me, and this is because it's one of the original themes. Space did this as well, but the evolution of parts and creating new parts for specific purposes. The one thing that sticks out in mind to me, and John, you mentioned this earlier, the torsos that you applied stickers to. The original chess pieces were basically just like this bib that had a sticker slapped onto
Yep.
it, with a small curve at the bottom. Or no, no, not even the curve. Excuse me. I'm getting ahead of myself. The curve piece became the first cape,
Right.
which was in, I think,
Yeah.
the second generation of Castle, became the first cape. And there was
Plastic
the
cape.
Yep. And then there was the Wolfpack set. The first Wolfpack set had the blacksmith that they reversed the cape and turned it into his apron. And that's the only time that cape piece, that plastic cape piece has been produced in brown, is in that one set.
Oh, I wonder how much that little piece is on with
I
foil
didn't
bricklane.
I didn't
That's a
look that
cool
up.
one.
I didn't look that up because I didn't wanna know. But, it's the cape in particular would not have had the opportunity to come around with literally any other theme other than Castle,
Yep.
Right.
you know?
True.
Because that plastic cape went along, and then the cape as we know it today, the cloth piece, was first introduced with Fright Nights in '97. Taylor, the Bat Lord and the Witch Woman were the first two with the, cloth capes as we know it.
That's when they started getting into fantastical, right? They got away
Yeah.
from they started getting kind of going into creating this fantastic side of creation, like to that point of
Mhm.
you create a more exciting and diverse building experience when you can just kind of build anything,
Just go wild,
and
yeah.
yeah, you can go wild. And so the witches and that whole idea gives you the ability to do all kinds of crazy stuff, right?
Yeah. What I find kinda funny about that too is, like, that specific castle theme introduced the cape as we know it today with, like, the 2 holes and whatnot, and the same cape that Star Wars used a few years later. But just before that, they released a cape that was a cloth one as well for one of the Dragon Knights that was just a single hole, but they discontinued it because it would only stick out from the bag. Now, with a lot of the modern capes, they're going back to that single hole design.
Mostly on the friend side,
Yeah.
mostly for the mini dolls.
Well, even in Marvel with, like, Thor and Loki and the Batman
It's
stuff or
just
single
one.
hole stuff now, it's just one hole, but the material's different, so it still
Oh yeah,
drapes down appropriately, but I found that very funny. I was like, they're going back to the one hole for certain themes.
that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's so funny. I always, for some reason, my brain always goes to money. Kip, the set 6073 retails, if you can find it now, just so you know, about $1,800.
Yeah, I don't have the
So not
box.
quite
I
that.
might be able to
Mm.
find the
Yeah,
instructions and all the pieces.
yeah. It's crazy,
Yeah.
man. It's crazy how the demand for these older sets drives these prices into crazy
Yep.
land.
So I find it interesting that in our this episode, our castle theme conversation, we're talking about castle, which is by nature historical. And all we're focusing on is history. I just spent 5 minutes talking about the history of the Cape piece. And also gold and money. Johnson's throwing out financial stuff.
I know. That's the different rabbit holes you can go into when you talk about these themes. That's the fun part about Lego, right? Trust me,
It's so fun.
I'm thinking about all the pieces that came out of Lego, right? Like you got the molded horses, you got the
Yep.
saddles, you got the bigger gray pieces that have the printed wall parts on them. The
Mhm.
introduction of the people packs, right?
Yep.
Like all that stuff is so exciting. Just
And,
outside of all the other.
the molded base plates too.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
don't forget those.
Yeah, Castle. I mean, Space had molded base plates, but Castle is what is known for molded base plates.
So here's my question.
I don't
for
think I
both
have
of
any of
you.
those.
What
Okay.
is your favorite
what you got?
faction?
Well, I mean, I
I
think I
already
said
know
mine
what
at
yours
the
is.
show. The Forest one would be my favorite, just from being a kid.
Yeah.
But John,
But
Makes
realistically,
sense.
yeah, for me, it's Forestmen or Black Falcons. I'm pretty even on both of them.
It's funny. Let me think through this for a minute because I've gotten kind of a revival recently into Castle. Our lug a couple years ago, we got access to a bunch of Black Knight torsos through our lug bulk, and so I was able to get a bunch of those, and so I have a little bit of a Black Falcon army. But then on the Pick-a-Brick wall, they had all the Lion's Knight, minifigs. So I was able to get a bunch of those. I think I just enjoy the battle. I actually think I'm with you. I like the Forestmen because I like their little thieves, the Robin Hood, rob from the rich, give to the poor. They live in the shadows and they got, cool bow and arrows and things like that. So I think the Forestmen are mine, but for pure Castle, I'm going to say the Lion Knights.
Lion Knights they've got pure Castle vibes.
Yeah.
They really do.
But I like the Black Falcon also because they're kind of badass. You know what I mean? They're badass. You just
like
look
the
at them and you're like, they're tough.
They're like the anti-heroes of Castle, where like they're not the bad guys, but you don't don't mess with them type feel.
Yeah.
So,
It's like the English and like the Lion's Knight is kind of like the English castle folk. You know what I mean? And then the Black Knight are like the kind of rebellions and the different but there's how many other factions are there? Is there like
there's
4 factions? And I think
there's a ton.
There's so many, man. I mean, the Fright Knights are their own faction. You've got the Royal Knights. You've got the Dragon Masters, the Wolf
Black Knights, the Wolf. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish.
Even I mean, it's kind of a spin-off, but it still falls under Castle. Is the original Ninja theme in 98 to 2000.
And the
is
Nixon Knights.
That is technically Castle as well.
I wish I would have not started my Dark Ages as soon as I did. Well, what I would have loved to have a bunch of in my personal collection would have been the Wolf Pack. But that is literally
those are probably the.
I think there's only 3 or 4 sets.
Ones, yeah.
There's only 3 sets.
Not do a lot of Wolf.
Yeah, and I would have loved to get all of them in multiples just because they look cool to me.
Yeah, they brought the Wolf Pack back in that village set recently. Yeah, which is cool. So that's one thing I want to touch on is Castle in the modern times. It's interesting because Castle went away entirely in the mid 2000s
after a flurry of amazing sets. Like they peaked in like early 2000s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
with Kingdoms and
that was mid to late 2000s was the Kingdom stuff. But the like Castle 3 I think was the last run, which was in the mid 2000s or the mid 2010s. Like 2020, well, early 2012, 2013, somewhere around there. But they were doing wonderful things, and like you see, I saw a video online recently doing a review of one of the last big Castle sets, which was that giant chess set they did with all the figures. And that was in my dark ages, but I was like, oh my God, I'm an avid chess player. I would love that. Was right down my freaking alley. And they were doing creative things and just stopped out of nowhere, it seemed. But
wonder what the trigger was there. Wonder why they shifted at that point. And I mean, I'm sure it wouldn't be hard to find out, but to your point, it was a complete halt, And maybe it was that they were getting into all the themed sets, because it also kind of aligns with, they're doing the Back to the Future, they're doing all the different,
They started to get into a lot more trademarks.
Like Indiana Jones.
Yeah, refocusing on licensing and whatnot. Yeah.
More Star Wars. all of that. Yeah.
But I miss that because, the 90th anniversary a few years ago brought back, the Lion Knight's castle and the
Oh,
Forcemen. And I mark that as well, I mean, that was a wonderful year for original Lego themes because that 90th anniversary, I think what they did by releasing those sets, like the Galaxy Explorers were at
Yeah.
is they were testing the pulse of what the interest is in these things.
they
And
went with a big ticket item. I
yeah,
mean,
and
that
I
was a
think
big set.
oh yeah, and I think the community said yes.
Bring us more.
But
I saw a
yeah,
retired set that is on this theme at the Lego store at Concord Mills this past weekend because they got a damaged truck in and they had like 7 of the blacksmiths.
Really?
good
They
set.
had like 7
Yeah,
of them.
that's an oversized build, but a wonderful
Yeah.
piece part build. I mean, it doesn't, like, you put that next to any of the castles except for the Lion's Night castle. It really is gigantic.
But
You
you
know,
can use it for a lot of the different rebrickables that I've seen.
Rebrickable has
And
so
you
many
can make so
cool.
many smaller
Yeah.
village scenes with that one set, which is
Dude, there are we wanna talk rebrickable. Rebrickable by itself tells you that people still love
yes,
Castle, and
Oh yeah,
they need to bring it back in full force because the
every
number
designer
of
program.
Castle rebrickable models.
yeah,
Yeah, in every Bricklink designer program, there's 1,000 castles.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
insane.
I got the castle on the first Bricklink designer program, but just for that same thing. I think that actually came out before the Lion's Night Castle, like
Yeah.
the very first
Yeah.
Bricklink,
Yeah, I did.
and then the Lion's Night Castle came out. But I have it; it's still in the box. I can't bring
And it
myself to
wouldn't
build it,
surprise me if
which is
the
crazy.
demand for that one from the designer program isn't what pushed the bigger like Lion's Night and King's Castles
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
come and be pulled into
it was
fruition.
influential
Yeah,
for sure.
exactly.
100%. But that just goes to show, I mean, Castle still captures people's imagination to this day.
Wanting to do it.
Granted, I do think a lot of the Castle stuff is pulling from the AFOL community, at least in modern times. There exists a place. Kids still love that stuff. Kids can still capture their imagination. D&D, Dungeons and Dragons now
Oh, that's
is bigger than it has ever been, and it's not just the old people that grew up playing it. It's young kids playing
Only
it.
they have
it's
computers
all the
now
people
to
that
help them
used to
piece it
love the
together.
Violent Femmes, and they grew up in that era, playing D&D and listen to Violent
That's
Femmes.
right. Yeah, I'm just saying I may or may not have a couple of AD&D, Dungeon Master guides and players handbooks and a giant bag of dice for some reason in my attic.
Just a few like 10 cube dice or 10-sided dice.
Not that I didn't play between the ages of 10 and 22.
But have you gotten the Dungeons and Dragons set yet?
No, the
That's
price
going to be on
point
your
is
wish
steep,
list.
man. Yeah, I
It
do
is.
want it. I do want it, but that's a steep price tag. But and this all ties in with Castle because that goes in with it, and that may be the direction that we see Castle now. And to be honest with you, I'm fine with that because that's a whole nother realm of a whole nother world of creativity that can be tapped into. And Dungeons and Dragons is in the forefront of people's minds, and that is where the pulse is. And Lego that set has sold very
You
well.
two know.
Yeah, also that 3-in-1.
You two know.
Say it
And the
again, Kipp?
Castle 3
You two know how far I jump into things with my city and my amusement
Yes.
park. Castle is on the list.
Yeah.
I'm there with you,
So-
man. I got a stack of sets set aside to eventually get into that castle
I'm-
because
It's gonna go nuts.
every city needs a good castle. When Andrew Heath brought that Renaissance fair scene to Columbia
Yeah.
BrickCon, it
That was
fit
cool.
so
Yeah.
well. It
Perfect.
was a highlight. He took that
Yeah.
castle, which was an amazing mock, and he made it into a Renaissance fair and put it in the middle of a city, and it fit perfectly. So
Yep.
to that point, you can build some incredible castle scenes. And so let me just kind of explore one other aspect of Castle that I think is really exciting for me in particular, because I always love creating vignettes or scenes. The 375 or 107, the earlier sets were more play style, right? They were more like we're gonna line them up and throw marbles at each other and destroy the castle and then rebuild it, and it was real playtime. And as you've gotten older and you begin to acquire Lego parts and buy multiple sets and find things like Rebrickable, and you create beautiful scenes. And so this is what the castle, it for me does, is it gives me a place in my mind to build, not necessarily historic, but in my mind, like I imagine, like I mentioned earlier, a castle on the edge of a river and with all kinds of trees
It's
around
the
it,
village.
trails going down. Yeah, trails going down the castle with some secret, spots to go to, and like you said, a village leading into it, and then a place for all the horses, and a place. You've got to have a lot of trees, and you've got to have a lot of space, and it just grows and grows and grows, and in your mind, you have this magical place that you're creating, and that's what castle is to me. It's this gigantic place that we just take these little bricks and we kind of start building with them. But Kip, I'm with you, like all in on castle at some
At
point.
some point.
And we have a lot of people in the lug that do amazing castle work.
Oh,
Mikey B.
absolutely.
Mikey B has
Yes.
done some stand-up
Yes,
work.
he has.
Oh yeah, the way he incorporates his castle, his architecture alone, but especially with his
Don't
landscape
forget
and the way
Jim.
He does everything
he
on
blends
angles,
everything
nothing
together.
straight.
No.
Nothing's 90-degree angle. Every single thing he builds is on an angle with hills,
No.
And
everything.
don't forget
And
Jim
it looks so
Fisk as
cool.
well, with the way that he does his, to where anybody can just join in with the way he's done his
On a 16
on
by
the
16.
16s. Yeah.
Mills.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just so tons of mills. And then obviously you got Richard. Richard takes the cake. I mean, I don't think his castle's together anymore, but when I saw it for the first time, I couldn't
Oh,
believe
it's
how
still
big it
together.
actually was.
It's still together. I
Is
think
it?
he's got at least one more display with it before it's coming
Man.
down. I think there's one more Virginia, and then it's gone.
Yeah, so listeners, if you're ever curious, go to Bearded Bricks on YouTube and check him out. He's got a whole life story of that castle, and it's
That castle will
ginormous.
be turning
So
into a World War II mock eventually.
I'm excited to see what he does. He's a great builder.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
But all that castle stuff, all of that is what we as AFOLs now do, right? So we buy multiple sets. So none of us are buying those old sets anymore, to be honest with you. We're all buying the new sets and building amazing displays with them, but they're so nostalgic. Pick a brickin', yeah. And buy it, getting everything we can. And so anyway, I've gotten good at trees over time because of castle. I've gotten good at scenes, right? Because you got to have great scene work with your mocks because of castle,
And that just kind of goes back. You said it yourself, John. Nobody's buying those sets right now because there are no castle sets available. They're so few and far between. They drop a random one every couple years. That's not a theme. It's just a one-off icons or creator 3-in-1 or anniversary or something like that. But yet, at the same time, everyone designing their own castles and rating pick-a-brick rolls and throwing up instructions on Rebrickable. I mean, so obviously, castle's not going hasn't gone anywhere in people's hearts and minds.
I think the demand for castle is only going to go up. I mean, if they release one more 3-in-1 like the one that they did here a couple years ago, that's on sale at Target recently. I think for like $79. That thing has been on Rebrickable. Now it's gotten to I don't know, probably like 20 or 30 different amazing designs in that one 3-in-1.
Those 3-in-1s too that they released, they've been working their way through themes for testing too, because they did the pirate ship, then the medieval 3-in-1, then the Viking ship.
Now there's some space ones.
They're working their way through themes, and I think that's they're doing some testing there. Oh, anyway, gentlemen, we've gone deep down this castle rabbit hole. This has been fun.
We need to revisit.
I know we just scratched the surface. This should be like a 3-hour. If it's not a 3-hour podcast, it's a 3-hour side conversation about this awesome theme.
I feel like we've talked on everything and nothing at the same time.
We feel the same way.
Surface to get the itch to make us want to talk more.
Right? Exactly. Well, I the exciting news though is that you guys said you're all in castle at some point. Kipp, that doesn't surprise me at all because after seeing the Renaissance Fair and you doing theme parks, I can see that falling into play simply. Yep. John, nothing surprises me because when you're in on something, you just go
a little bit overboard. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm going to take castle in a different direction. I already told you guys about this, but I'm collecting pieces now. But my next big, like larger scale build, which I'm hoping to have ready at some point next year, is I want to combine Minecraft with Castle. So
Can't wait.
I'm collecting Minecraft knights, and I'm gonna make this huge scale Minecraft yellow castle.
That's going to be outstanding. I can't wait. We're going to have to do an episode on Minecraft just so I can learn some things about it.
Me and John will just sit here quiet, and Eric can talk because we just need to learn about it.
It's the one man show. Dude, I'll get passionate about it. I mean, it's simple stuff, but it's the fun things you can do, and the math behind it is the most fascinating part. But
You should do a Minecraft Forestman's Hideout.
Oh,
that'd be
you
kinda fun.
might have just started a wheel turn.
Yeah. I got a lot of black bricks I need to make. Need to do something with, but it makes just a bunch of square black trees.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But anyway, well, guys, I mean, we can, like you said, John, this could be a 3-hour castle conversation or more. So let's go ahead and wrap where we're head. We may do part 2 here in the future and revisit at some point. Let us know if you guys want to hear more, or if there's specific things we didn't talk about that you want to talk about in Castle. Let us know in the comments. Tell us what your thoughts are. But gentlemen, last words before we wrap up the Brick Lounge Castle episode.
Well, this was fun. I always love talking Lego with you guys, and hopefully for the listeners out there, this kind of piqued your nostalgic bone a little bit. All those AFOLs out there that grew up building with Lego, and maybe it'll inspire you to go build something with those bricks you have right now. And we're certainly loving the feedback we've gotten so far from the podcast, and we'd love to hear from you guys some more, because it's as you can hear when you talk to us, it's just fun for us to talk Lego, and we love to hear from you guys and hear about what you're building. And so I don't know, great topic, guys. We're done with the 3 though, which is kind of sad. We're going to figure out what's next, right?
I know what's.
What's that?
Well, don't give it away. We'll hold on to that one until we're off mic.
But tease.
Last thoughts on Castle are Castle 2027.
Castle 2027.
Was that how far out we're putting it? We're going to build the massive castle in 2027.
I don't want to say massive castle, but a large scene with castle, village, a bunch of, I'm thinking cliff work with the castle on it type situation. Not necessarily like Richard's. I don't want to do that big of a castle. I don't need it to be that big, but I do want like some cliff work with maybe a waterfall with a castle, or at least part of the castle built into the cliff. That type of thing. Castle 2027.
The scene work.
Castle 2027.
Castle 2027. Awesome. Well, gentlemen, it is always a pleasure. This is fun. Ladies and gentlemen listening, thank you so much again for your input, your insight. Let us know what you want us to do next. And until next time, I believe it is John's turn.
Oh, I'm so lucky. All right, everybody. It's been great fun, but it's bricks down.